Bro, I don't give a fuck, bro. They held me down and they made me watch little kids get raped. Bro, they fucking took me to the fucking woods, bro. And Bohemian Grove is real. They fucking tied me down and they made me fucking watch, dog. Yes, I fucking lost it. They're raping little kids.
2024, Ryan Garcia exposed everything we know now from the Epstein files. He went on live with a group of people and claimed that he was kidnapped and taken to Bohemian Grove, and that's where he saw men raping children and they made him watch. And if you have no idea what Bohemian Grove is, it's this private social club located in Monterey, California, where the elites go to do God knows what. For many years, they called it a conspiracy and said that this place was somewhere these men just hung out to drink, talk, network, do business, and it was all harmless. But in reality, this is where they were doing disturbing and disgusting things to children. Ryan has been very vocal about this and he's even been threatened, but he said that children are being trafficked and sold to rich politicians. They're great. Satanic rituals are performed and babies are being eaten. And he isn't the only one saying this. Other people have described identical situations, like when this video was posted in 2013 where Tila Tequila talks about what she saw them do to kids.
You know, and they have lots of sex, child trafficking rings, and they even have their own churches, but they're very satanic churches, and they do abominations. You know, they sodomize each other. Children's lives were sacrificed. The children that are molested, because they often, you know, they were even like molesting 3-year-olds, and then they're asking me like, can we go even like lower? Meaning like, can we have with a baby?
This sounds pretty familiar.
The rarest babies that have ever been born. So typically when babies are born, they are born with barely any hair. Well, that's typically, because back in 2017, this baby named Chenko was born with a full set of hair, and the baby's mother actually documented her child's hair growth as she got older. In the photos I'm showing you, the baby is just several months old and maybe just a year. Well, the baby's hair was so luxurious and amazing, she acquired nearly 300,000 followers on Instagram as a baby and even got her own shampoo ad. Yeah, that's so impressive. Next, all the way back in 2010, this Nigerian couple gave birth to their baby in a London hospital. Well, the baby turned out to be a blonde, blue-haired, wide-eyed girl. And right when the father saw this, he immediately looked at his wife and said, "What's going on here? Is she from me?" Well, after a DNA test was done, it turns out he was the father. Even though the baby was Caucasian with blue eyes and blonde curly hair, doctors suggest it's actually a result of a trace of Caucasian ancestry from each of the parents that they had no idea about.
Here's some animal facts for you. Female octopuses will strangle and eat males who approach them when they're not in the mood. Octopuses also hold grudges and throw shells at others they don't like. There was a giant study that revealed that cats in the United States are friendlier than cats in Japan because in the United States we have a favorable view of cats and they spend more time with strangers and their owners. There was also a smaller study in Turkey that showed that cats will meow louder at men, but it does suggest that cats like to match the vocal tone of people around them. Air Bud was actually portrayed by a real dog named Buddy. Honeybees actually will cuddle in a giant group hug to stay warm during the winter. While humans only have 3 major blood groups, horses actually have 8, which means they can have thousands of different unique blood types. Ginkgo-toothed beak whales had never been seen in person alive until a team in Mexico finally found 2 last year. Ducks, more often than not, will...
The 2 places on Earth that if you go to, you will die. Up first, we've got North Sentinel Island. If you go anywhere near this island, you will die. This island is in the middle of nowhere, it doesn't have an airport, and the only way you can get there is by boat. The people on this island are known as the North Sentinelese, and they're all part of one tribe. It's so dangerous that the Indian government have said it is illegal to go within 5 miles of the island. If you do get anywhere near the island, you're likely to get shot with bow and arrows. This here is John Allen Chow. He did actually go to the island to try and speak to the North Sentinelese people. But this didn't go so well because just as he got to the island, he was killed and they kept his body. And at number 2, we've got Snake Island. If you go here, you will die. The island is filled with the most dangerous snakes in the world, and if you do get bitten by one, you will not survive. Every step you take, there will be swarms of more snakes. And the only people that can go to the island are the maintenance workers to change the lighthouse light bulb once a year.
Let's talk about Stillwater and why you should not get into it, and it also brings us to this video right here. So the guy in the video, here he is here. After he jumped in the water, his name's Max Powers. He was at this abandoned building, found this stagnant pool of water. He jumped in. I don't know if he was dared to. What happened? He jumps in, and this is how he ended up. He got a brain-eating amoeba. From what I found, he went into a coma. He woke up in the hospital, and now he's all good. I'm not sure. There's not a whole lot out there about it. When it comes to brain-eating amoeba, you get it when this water infected with this amoeba is shot up your nose. You know, you're underwater, you're doing whatever. It goes up your nose and travels up to your brain. The early signs of this are in the first 90 days after exposure. You're going to get a severe headache, fever, nausea, vomiting. This quickly progresses to a stiff neck, seizures, confusion, and, like Max, a coma. The resulting infection, PAM, or primary amoebic meningoencephalitis, is almost always fatal. It's got like a 97% fatality rate, and typically within 1 to 18 days of when the symptoms came on. This amoeba thrives in warmer waters, especially where the water is above 85 degrees. While these cases are rare, it's like only 10 cases in the US per year. It still can happen. Like in 2010 and 12, a 7 and 9-year-old both died after swimming in Stillwater, Minnesota. So while it's rare, why risk it for swimming in this?
Your thumbs need a break. Let me explain. I want you all to place your thumbs on the screen right here and do not move them for the entire video. Your thumbs, they need some rest because the average social media user scrolls through roughly 300 feet of content every day on their phone. And, well, that's about the height of the Statue of Liberty. But guys, remember, don't move those thumbs. Yeah, it's really impressive how much we use our thumbs, because in 9 days of scrolling on social media, we traveled the height of the Burj Khalifa, the world's tallest building, and this is the average user. Now, a study was even done that proved that the average person on social media will scroll the height of 4 Mount Everest every single year. So, could I say your thumb has been to Mount Everest 4 times in the past 365 days. Finally, if all of us social media users came together with our thumbs, we could reach the moon in about 4 minutes and 30 seconds in scroll distance, and apparently we could even reach Mars in 10 hours and 40 minutes, showing how much we travel with our thumbs literally just using our electronic devices.
A law that says that pets are now legal family members. They are not property, but they are sentient beings and a part of the family. The Maldives have become the first nation in the world to introduce a generational ban on smoking and tobacco for anyone born starting in 2007, including tourists. That's an interesting way to just like completely de-incentivize people doing it in the future, but I've never thought about that being a solution. I don't know how that's gonna work. Ethiopia launched a nationwide campaign to plant 700 million trees in a single day, and they're aiming to plant 50 billion trees by next year. French Polynesia have established the world's largest marine protected area, covering nearly 5 million kilometers of its exclusive zone. New FDA-approved glasses are apparently able to slow nearsightedness in kids. I could have used that growing up. A couple got on CNN the other day specifically because they had found a duck-shaped tomato in their garden that morning. Strangers just raised $1.7 million to help a veteran who lost his pension in
If you still think that Trump had zero involvement with Epstein, maybe this will change your mind. Let's take it back to 1995, where a limo driver says that he met and drove Trump to Dallas Fort International Airport. He said that during the drive, Trump was on the phone with someone. He doesn't know who exactly, but he says that he was talking about a woman and how he abused her. The driver said that Trump mentioned Jeffrey's name a few times, and the things that was coming out of Trump's mouth was concerning. He said that it was so bad that he wanted to get out of the car and hurt him. And this is all written here in the files, so the number is right there if you guys want to go check it out. Then years passed, and in 1999, this same driver picks up a woman for a ride. They're in the car and they start talking, and I guess he brings up Trump's name in the conversation. He said that this woman went stone cold, and she told him that Jeffrey and Trump raped her. She says that some girl with a funny name took me into a fancy hotel or building, and that's how it happened. Now, who could that be? So this driver is in complete shock, but also he remembers a time when he met Trump and how disgusting and disturbing he was with the things that he was saying about abusing a woman. So he tells this woman that she needs to go and report this to the police, but this woman was very scared. She tells him that she doesn't want to because she's afraid of what could happen to her, but eventually she does. In December of 1999, this woman calls the driver and tells him that she did go ahead and report this to police. Then about 2 weeks later, on January 10th, the driver finds out that this woman was found deceased with her head blown off. What is absolutely terrifying is that police at the scene said that there is no way this was a suicide. But later the coroner stated that it was. Now, this is all considered alleged, but if you have a single brain cell and have been reading the files and everything they've been covering up, you'd know that this isn't hard to believe.
Just some bullshit with fur. Default mammal. Bro is just a template thing. Oh, I'm sorry. Just a random effing thing. Login reward. This might be the worst one. Login reward. Bro got called easy to draw in every possible vernacular. They slandering the hell out of my boy. I gotta say something. Especially with his big bro on my chest. That potato vampire is a hyrax and they did not evolve for 50 million years just to get called a walking template. Bro is literally in the Bible. Especially since their closest relatives are elephants, which everyone loves, and manatees, which laws had to stop people from loving. The same animal folks call the first interaction in a tutorial is cousins with the most iconic animal on earth. They even have the same tusks for fighting and female validation, although the bar here is lower than their balls are, because internal testicles are another thing that an elephant and a hyrax have in common. Also, showing up to the same family reunion as a trunk warrior may distract you from the fact that rock rabbits are much bigger than you think they are. Or maybe it's my biases that need reflection. Best believe they get more respect if it were back in the day, because Titano-Hyrax Ultimus would have been big enough to mog a buffalo. But Hyrax Ultimus Prime died out and left us with an animal built like a first draft. Nature itself might have forgotten this was a mammal. They're so bad at thermal regulating, a lot of their energy comes from charging in the sun. It's also why the Does See will play fur Tetris with each other. The same animal that barely seems aware of itself has complex social colonies, where there'll be at least one lifeguard to warn others of danger with an alarm call. So do meerkats, but when you look like you drop zero loot when you leave life, you get no TV show. They've also graffitied entire cliffs because their pee contains calcium carbonate and because they pee in one spot and they pee a whole lot. Remember that before you invite this concept into your house. The more you know. Have you seen that video where that penguin randomly gets to call the void and just waddles away from everything he knows to certain death? So penguins have feeding grounds by the sea and breeding grounds, which is the colony. This penguin went off script and went straight to the mountains, 70 kilometers away, by himself. There's nothing for him over there, nothing but a certain sweet release, and we still have no idea why. But I have theories. Penguins smell unfathomably offensive, and because it's so cold, their poop doesn't decompose nearly as fast. So not only do they make the area code smell like an avian outhouse, they pile up so much you can see the brown mounds from space. You might be wondering how they keep their nests clean. That's how, and from the multiple money shots, that's a habitual victim. Not to mention, penguins will cheat on each other, with some species having a fidelity rate of 15%, which means there's an 85% chance you come home to your wife to someone arriving in her. Also, penguins that lose their chick will often attempt to kidnap someone else's, but once the penguin parental urge passes, they leave that same chick to die. So I wouldn't blame a penguin for seeing all that and choosing whatever this is. On a serious note, I have no idea why they do this, and it's not like it's a one-time thing. This isn't AI. That's an emperor penguin that swam 2,000 miles in the wrong direction and ended up in Australia. That's like doing 44,000 laps in an Olympic-sized pool just following vibes. Scientists say maybe he got disoriented or a storm blew him off course. Maybe he's sick or tired or sick of being tired. Or maybe the same call of the void that allegedly sends divers to the abyss never to return sends penguins waddling into the oblivion, because despite condemning himself to death for a brief moment, he's free. There's a lesson here, and I'm not the one to teach it. The more you know.
He paid a homeless man $200 to essay his wife. In 2016, 48-year-old Russell Higgins approached Haliki Green and asked him if he wanted to make some extra money. Russell claimed that his wife had a SA fantasy and wanted to make it a reality, so he offered him $200 and drove him to his house. That same day, a 911 call was made in Tehachapi, California, and the caller stated that she had just gotten SA'd. She stated that her husband was watching the entire thing and he was actually the one directing the attack. Once police arrived to the home, they found the unidentified woman, Russell, and Haliki. A woman told police that she had just gotten home from work. She walked into her bedroom and her husband and that random man were hiding in the dark when they attacked her. The men had tied her up and Haliki had ripped off the clothes off of her body, and under direction of Russell, Haliki SA'd her. During the attack, Russell was giving Haliki suggestions like new positions and tips. The woman was able to bite her husband's hand during the attack, but then he threatened to end the life of her, her children, and her grandchildren if she were to resist. After the attack, Russell demanded that his wife go take a shower so she could wipe off any kind of DNA evidence, but while she was in the shower, she washed her hair but did not wash her body. The woman handed over her husband's phone to police and told them that it contained hundreds of thousands of photos of SA. The police conducted an SA kit on the woman, and it did reveal that her attacker was Hiliki Green. Police were able to track him down in Bakersfield, California, and when he spoke to police, he stated that he didn't think he was SAing the woman because Russell stated that that was her fantasy. Leakey stated that he had smoked before Russell had approached him and he really wanted the money so he could buy more substances, and after the attack, they smoked together. Russell and Hiliki were both found guilty. Russell was sentenced to 53 years to life in prison, and Hiliki was sentenced to 118 years to life in prison. Both will be eligible for parole in March of 2041.
What the FBI just found in Las Vegas is pretty concerning. Authorities have uncovered a possible illegal biological lab in someone's home. And this doesn't appear to be some weekend hobby. Not only did they find over 1,000 samples of unknown substances which had to be sent away for testing, but the owner of the home, a Chinese national, was arrested in 2023 for running another biological lab all the way over in California. And that lab, which allegedly received funding from Chinese banks, had samples with very concerning labels on them, including HIV, malaria, TB, COVID-19, and even Ebola. Now, the samples found at this Las Vegas lab on Saturday were, quote, consistent in appearance with the items found and described in the California lab investigation. So this now raises a serious concern. What are these samples being used for? And if 2 labs have now been discovered, could there be even more?
2026 just got even crazier, part 13. Well, reports are currently coming out saying that Kim Jong-un has chosen his 13-year-old daughter as the next future leader of North Korea, and reportedly she's being trained to become the leader of North Korea. And according to a spy agency, it's even said that Kim Jong-un is believed to have an older son, but nobody knows anything about him at all. And we barely know anything about his 13-year-old daughter, who is set to become the next leader. Next, for years, there has been a Pokestop on Epstein Island in Pokemon Go. It was a sun clock on the island. Typically, Pokestops in Pokemon Go are generally in safe areas, but this one definitely wasn't. And now in 2026, after many years of being there, it was removed. Finally, a John Wick video game was just announced, and they already released a trailer for it. Keanu Reeves is even said to be involved in the production and will help out with voice, likeliness, and overall presence in the game. Pretty cool.
This is one of the eeriest images that I have found in the Epstein files so far. So, as you can see, well, there's the file number down there if you care to look it up. This image is depicting a man very eerily grinning and staring at the camera while holding somebody's permanent residence card. But who is the person depicted on that card? Well, it is Epstein's one-time girlfriend, the girlfriend he had before his death, Karina Shuliak. Karina is kind of an infamous player in this story. She was left a significant amount of money and a significant chunk of Epstein's estate after he died, if you believe that he died. And obviously, Karina is seen all over the files. Her presence is felt not only in the documents, but in so many of the pictures and images. And many people, including myself, believe that it would have been hard for someone like Karina to have existed in the Epstein world, in Epstein's orbit, and obviously have been dating him and not have had any sort of a clue or inkling that Epstein was actively trafficking young women. Obviously, Karina should be brought in and investigated by not only the FBI, but the DOJ or whatever agency handles this investigation. But to my knowledge, I don't think they've really done that yet. They may have talked to her after Epstein died, but I don't think they've ever grilled Karina and really tried to figure out what she knows. But regardless, that still leaves us with this question. Who is this guy? Why is this guy holding Karina's card? Why is he smiling like that? And why is he staring at the camera so menacingly and so creepily? Well, I don't know. If you guys have any ideas as to who this individual may be, please let me know in the comment section because I am compiling all of this information into a file and a document. This really stuck out to me when I first came across this image slash I was so unbelievably spooky, and this image had
I found a free horror game where you can date your sleep paralysis demon. Let's talk about the strangest dating sim I have ever played. Welcome, dear human. Full playthrough with all endings on my channel now. The game starts with our character moving into a new place, but we start seeing a shadowy figure in the corner of the room at night. Okay, maybe we're just having difficulty sleeping. Let's just count some sheep and see how we feel. But no, it's real. There's definitely something sitting at the foot of our bed. Over the course of multiple days and nights, we have to talk to this creature. It's watching us while we sleep. It hides in our home during the day. What is this thing doing? We have to examine the creature, learn about it, and show it things around the house that make it happy. It might not look like it at first, but this creature is very fond of you. And based on the way we treat it, we can get one of 3 different endings. There are some really cool moments in this game, both scary and wholesome, that I won't spoil here. But this one is odd. I've heard of monster games.
Scientists said the odds of it happening were 1 in 74 trillion. While 34-year-old Ann Hodges was napping on her couch in Alabama in 1954, a softball-sized meteorite tore through her roof, bounced off her radio, and slammed into her side, leaving a massive bruise but miraculously sparing her life. She had become the only confirmed person in history to be struck by a meteorite. The space rock triggered a legal battle between Ann and her landlord over ownership, but it ended up in Ann's possession. The rock is now on display at the Alabama Museum of Natural History. Tom Cruise divorced all 3 of his ex-wives when they turned 33, and each is 11 years younger than the last. In 2009, a retired policeman named Geraint Wolford was admitted to Abergele Hospital in North Wales. Amazingly, it just so happened that he was put next to another retired policeman named Geraint Wolford. The men weren't related, had never met, and were the only 2 people in Europe named Geraint Wolford. In 2004, Grandma Dorothy Fletcher suddenly suffered a heart attack on her flight to Florida. When the stewardess asked if there was a doctor on board, 15 people quickly stood up. It was a group of heart doctors on their way to a cardiology conference.
You have to hear this. A former gang member serving decades in prison says that he had a near-death experience where he went to hell and was forced to relive every violent and evil act of his life, not as himself, but as his victims. A prisoner and former gang member named Kenneth McDonald, who was serving a 70-year sentence for attempted murder and robbery, was sitting in his prison cell late one night when something happened that would change his life forever. Without warning, Kenneth saw a glowing figure pass straight through the wall behind his cellmate, James. The figure appeared human, but not normal. He was levitating off the ground and holding what looked like a tablet, calmly writing as if taking notes. Kenneth said that he felt completely frozen, unable to move, but at the same time overwhelmed by an intense feeling of peace. The mysterious man stood silently behind James, observing him. After a moment, James turned to Kenneth and said, "Yo, what are you looking at?" When James glanced over his shoulder, he jumped back in shock. That's when Kenneth realized this wasn't a hallucination. James could see him too. The glowing man looked at both of them, wrote a few things on his tablet, and then passed straight back through the wall, disappearing. At the time, Kenneth was pagan, so he didn't think much of it. He just assumed that it was some kind of spirit. James, who had been raised Christian, believed that it could have been an angel. Months passed and Kenneth said that he drifted back into his old lifestyle, continuing the same violent and destructive behavior that had landed him in prison. Then came the night of December 20th, 2021. Kenneth said that he got up to get a drink of water when he suddenly felt extremely disoriented and weak. Moments later, he collapsed from heart failure. He said that he found himself in a dark valley, like a barren desert wasteland. Off in the distance stood a menacing man, staring at him, his gaze filled with judgment, as if he knew everything that Kenneth had ever done wrong. A crushing sense of shame washed over him. Kenneth said that he saw smoke rising from his chest, and then darkness began to surround him. What came next, he said, was unbearable. He relived every evil thing he had ever done, but this time through the eyes of the people that he had hurt. He felt their fear, their pain, and their suffering. He experienced exactly what his actions had done to others. He said that there is nothing on earth that compares to the torment of living through that. His mouth burned, he said. He even relived every cruel word that he had ever spoken to another person. Then Kenneth said that he heard a voice ask him one question: do you want to live or die? He said he chose to live. The pain began to fade, and he found himself back in that dark alley, still facing the same mysterious man who was still watching him as if nothing was hidden. Then in an instant, everything changed. Kenneth said that he was suddenly given a glimpse of heaven. He was instantly transported there where he was surrounded by angels. He said that the beauty was so overwhelming that he fell to his knees in gratitude. In that moment, he said, he knew without a question that God was real. He described it as knowledge being downloaded directly into his heart. When Kenneth woke up, doctors told him that he had been clinically dead for 20 minutes, and they couldn't understand how he wasn't brain dead. He said that he was a completely different person. When he returned to prison, he was greeted by Christian inmates who told him that they had been praying for him. Kenneth began preaching the gospel every Monday in prison. He said that at that moment, he finally surrendered and said, "Jesus, take the wheel. I'll stop trying to control everything." His life changed completely. Not long after, he appeared before a parole board and was granted parole. Today, Kenneth continues to live a Christian life and says that God has given him all the desires of his heart.
I'm a new mom. I also host a podcast where I talk about people's paranormal experiences. And one thing that has really shocked me about motherhood is the amount of one very specific paranormal experience that a lot of pregnant women have. So right when I started telling people I was pregnant, I called my grandmother. She's 82 years old, and she picks up and I go, "Mimi, I have something to tell you." And she goes, "Oh, I know, you're pregnant." And I immediately, I'm like, "Did my mom tell you? Like, how do you know I'm pregnant?" And she goes, "No, I had a dream last week that you were pregnant. So that's what you're probably calling me about." And I thought that was so strange. So I started telling some of my friends that story, and you would not believe the amount of women that told me that they also knew another woman, it's always a woman, who had a predictive dream about one of their friends or family members being pregnant. And then this week on the podcast, I'm covering scary Reddit stories, and there's a whole section where we talk about supernatural things that happen when you're pregnant. And again, I'm getting so many listeners that are reaching out right now being like, "I had a dream my best friend was pregnant and she hadn't told anyone," or that their moms predicted they were pregnant in dreams. But it's always women, and it's always having a dream about someone being pregnant and being right about it.
Famous autopsies. Today we're talking about Brandon Lee. So it was March 31st in 1993. Brandon was just 28 years old when he was on set filming the movie The Crow. A .44 caliber slug from a dummy round had become lodged in a barrel during a previous scene, and when they shot this scene, they pulled the trigger and the explosive force shot this lodged slug out, and it struck Brandon in the abdomen. After he was shot, Brandon was rushed to the hospital where he underwent 6 hours of emergency surgery and received 60 units of blood in an attempt to save him. The .44 caliber bullet entered his lower right abdomen and lodged in his spine. Brandon was wheeled in weighing 167 pounds and measuring 5'11". His official cause of death was a single gunshot wound to his abdomen. His abdomen sustained a silver dollar-sized wound on the right side. He had major intestinal damage done. Several major arteries were severed, leading to massive internal bleeding. After entering, the bullet traveled in a straight line and became lodged in his spine. This bullet caused catastrophic damage, perforating his stomach. From improper procedures to negligent use of dummy rounds and just a failure to check the barrel, there were multiple failed safety protocols that could have made his death totally preventable had they just followed through and done these things. Rest in peace to Brandon. That's super scary.
3 signs that you might be a genius. 1. You're sarcastic. People that are sarcastic are usually clever and quick-witted. This is because being sarcastic requires you to think on your feet. Number 2. Staying up late. If this is you at 3 AM, there's a high chance that you're smarter than the average person. So the next time you're tired in class, just show this video to your teacher. And finally, at number 3, you have messy handwriting. Studies have proven that people have messy handwriting because their brains work faster than their hands. Now everyone take a minute to tag someone or share this with someone that needs to hear it.
1 in a Million, Part 4. While filming for Blade Trinity, Jessica Biel was instructed to shoot an arrow directly at the camera that was more than 60 feet away. It was protected by plexiglass except for a tiny 2x2 inch square in front of the lens, which Biel managed to hit with a direct bullseye, thus destroying the $300,000 camera. An electric company in Arkansas was forced to post this PSA after someone took out a power line with an unbelievable arrow shot. In 1982, the Manuela family lost their beloved pet tortoise Manuela while their house was being renovated. 30 years later, they were cleaning out their attic after their father died and miraculously found Manuela still alive. They think she was able to survive by eating termites in the furniture that their father was hoarding. In 2020, a fisherman off the coast of Maine caught a lobster that was exactly half blue and half brown, split perfectly down the center of its body. Scientists confirmed it was a bilateral gynandromorph, meaning it was literally half male and half female. The odds of finding one in the wild are about 1 in 50 million. A pair of Dutch short track skaters finished a race so closely together that it was impossible to pick a winner. They both finished with a time of 43.128 seconds, so they ended up sharing the gold. Jim Springer and Jim Lewis are identical twins who were separated at birth but ended up living nearly identical lives. Both married a woman named Linda, got divorced, and remarried a woman named Betty. They also both had a dog named Toy, drove a Chevy, and smoked Salem cigarettes. All of this was discovered when they were reunited at the age of 39.
She was caught making tamales out of women. Anabel Gomez Lopez was from Mexico City and she was a very well-known tamale maker. She would often sell her tamales outside of a subway station and no one really knew what the meat consisted of. One day, a gas leak had seeped through the walls of her home, which caused a horrible smell. This smell was so strong that a neighbor had smelled it, panicked, and called police. Once police had arrived to the home, they were met with a gruesome scene. Right there in the living room were the bones of a young woman who had been stripped from her flesh and meat. So the secret ingredient that Anabel was using for her tamales was the meat of women. For years, Anabel would prey on young women and lure them back into her home with the promise of food and shelter. The reason Anabel had did this in the first place was because she had spent all of her money and wasn't able to buy the meat for the tamales. That was until Anabel had came across this young girl who was looking for her parents and was lost. Anabel had told this young girl that she could go back to her home and call her parents with her phone, but of course Anabel had other sinister plans. Anabel had admitted to doing this to 50 women to use as meat for her tamales. She clearly had no remorse and stated that the only reason she got caught was because of that gas leak. Her defense attorney tried to argue that she was mentally ill because she heard a voice in her head telling her to use these women as meat. As a result, Anabel was sentenced to 25 years in prison.
I never thought I'd say this, but I kind of feel bad for the snake. Let me tell you something. That was an African crowned eagle. They're only found in sub-Saharan Africa, and they're considered to be the most dominant raptor on the continent. And for a good reason. First off, they come stocked with 3-inch talons. Look at those things. It also doesn't help that they can squeeze those talons at a rate of 400 pounds per square inch. And they use that strength for hunting. Basically, they swoop down at over 100 miles an hour. Oh yeah, they could fly over 100 miles an hour. And then they grab their prey by either the skull or the spine and they crush it. And that could be anything. Antelopes, monkeys, snakes, and on very rare occasions, even humans. Should have led with that one. Apparently, this is the only bird in the world that sees small humans as prey. I'm taking Africa off my bucket list. Moral of the story, there's birds of prey, and then there's the crowned eagle. They're in a class of their own. And as always, follow for more facts.
Her best friend was so obsessed with her that she catfished her into a relationship. In 2010, 18-year-old Renee Marsden was a hairdresser's apprentice who lived with her family in Sydney, Australia. That same year, Renee's boyfriend of 2 years was cheating on her, and even though he denied it, it didn't matter because she had evidence. But Renee immediately recovered from the relationship, and within a few weeks, she told her mom that she was happy because she met a new guy and she was in love with him. This new guy's name was Braden Spiteri, and he was 23 years old. Braden had actually dated Renee's best friend Camila, and Camila was the one that introduced them to each other through a chat, and she did this so that Renee could get over her ex-boyfriend. Although Camila and Braden had been together before, she told Renee not to worry and had no problem with them being together. Braden had sent several photos of himself to Renee through the chat, and he had even sent a photo of when he was with Camila. When Renee told her mom about this, she didn't necessarily like it because she felt like something was off. But she decided to ignore this feeling since her daughter was happy. For several weeks, Renee and Braden would constantly text each other, and even though they never met in person since Braden was always coming up with an excuse. The two were an online couple for over a year until something horrible happened in 2012. In January of 2012, Renee received a text message from Brayden stating that he was in a motorcycle accident. He survived, but his best friend Ronnie didn't. As the days went by, Brayden was updating Renee about the situation, and he ended up having to go to court, and the judge found him guilty of driving recklessly, and he was going to be arrested. Apparently, he was going to be sentenced to 2 years in prison and wouldn't have any kind of visitation rights. However, this didn't stop their relationship. Somehow, Brayden got a family member to smuggle him a cell phone while he was in jail so that he could still talk to his online girlfriend. During his time in prison, the relationship got more serious, and they had plans to get married at the end of 2013 when he would be released. Renee was super excited that she was going to be getting married, so she contacted a photographer and even bought a tiara on eBay. On August 5th of 2013, just 2 months before Brayden was supposed to be released, he broke up with Renee and she was destroyed. That same day, Brayden sent text messages to Renee's mother because he was worried about her since she was making threats to end her life. Renee's mother, Teresa, talked to her about the situation and wanted to make sure that she was going to be okay, and Renee told her to not worry, that she wasn't going to harm herself, she was just going to go out with some friends, but unfortunately that would be the last time that she saw her daughter alive. A few hours after Renee left the home, she texted her mother that she loved her very much and she was sorry for the pain she was going to cause her, and as soon as Renee's mother tried to give her a call, her phone was already turned off. Teresa and Camila went to go search for Renee, and they ended up finding her car on a steep cliff. After that day, Renee's body was never recovered. After Renee's death, Brayden just disappeared. Family tried to get in contact with him, but it was nearly impossible, so they contacted the prison that he was supposedly at, but they told the family that there was nobody by that name. They were never able to find Brayden because he didn't exist. The person behind those messages was Camila. In May of 2020, 7 years after everything happened, Renee's case was brought to court. When Camila met Renee in high school, she was very possessive of her and always wanted to have control over her. The first thing Camila did was make Renee believe that her ex-boyfriend of 2 years had been cheating on her, and Camila was the one who photoshopped these text messages so that she could believe that he was cheating on her. And Camila came up with a plan to make up a fake guy to be in a relationship with Renee. When Brayden broke up with Renee, she contacted the prison that he was supposedly at, and that's when they told her that no one was there by that name. That's when she realized Brayden was a complete lie and Camila was behind it all, and that's the reason that she ended her life. And that photo of Camila with that supposed Brayden was just a random guy that she had met at a bar. Camila didn't face any kind of charges since catfishing isn't a crime in Australia, and she has not apologized to Renee's family.